Been thinking a lot about, we all think a lot about the economic situation and what's in the near future for us. And it's very, very difficult to predict what's going to happen at any given time. I mean, even the smart people who understand the system can't really do that. But I was just, some things have been on the back of my mind. Usually this is all prompted by articles I read. This time it is not. I was riding around yesterday. We were doing some family trips, and I kept seeing all these for sale signs all over the place. And I've been seeing a lot of estate sales and garage sales, and of course it's the season for garage sales and stuff. But I'm seeing a lot of houses for sale, a lot of vacant properties, a significant number of estate sales, and it just got me to thinking about the financial situation and where we're at. And you know, usually people who are consider themselves preppers or prepared, or you know, the red pill people or whatever. Usually in recent decades we've been worried about inflation because of the money is valueless and they're printing so much of it. We just assume at some point it's going to lose all value and no one's going to be willing to take it anymore. I think it's much more likely in the near term that we're going to have deflation or stagflation. In deflation, your money can buy a lot more stuff. I'm not saying it's worth more, but you can get more Chinese junk for it. And in inflation, you know, you can get less Chinese junk for your money. I think we're about to enter a period of deflation. This is important because if you're facing inflation, then you want to spend all your money right now. You always want to be out of debt no matter what, unless you think there's massive inflation coming, and then you take on all kinds of debt, buy everything you can now, and when the money's worthless, pay off your debt with worthless money, which is really almost immoral. You know, that's what the elites have been trying to do for decades. You know, that's why they're so focused on having inflation, so you know they can have all this debt and try to pay it off cheaper than they borrowed the money. But if you know it's coming and you're not doing anything dishonest, it's fine. But in the near term, I think we're much more likely to have deflation because why? Well, all these people are dying, and what are they doing? They're leaving all their Chinese junk that they bought to fewer and fewer people. You know, in the old days, it was a big problem that your estates got cut up between your 10 children, and so land, and it was very, very hard for people for families to establish dynasties because the money got split up between so many children. Well, in this day and age, you know, it is not at all uncommon for one family to have one child, and that one child to marry someone who only had one child, you know, an only child, and then them to only have an only child, so that you're taking all this wealth and you're bringing it down, focusing it into this one person, and then, you know, there's people who have no children and stepchildren, and it really gets convoluted, and as the population ages and it is dying, they're leaving all this stuff to fewer and fewer people, and so there's less and less need to go out and buy it. There's less and less people to there's less and less need to go out and buy things like big ticket items like houses, you know, cars. The used car market is about to crash. This is not original to me. I've read it other places, but it makes sense, you know. All the leases, people are leasing so much and turning in their leases and whatnot, and you know, all these old folks are dying, and they're leaving behind cars and houses. So all this stuff's going to get real cheap for a while. But before the inflation kicks in. The inflation's coming. I mean, inflation always comes. Deflation is a rarity, but I think it's something we're facing in the near term, and you know, it's not unheard of. You know, it's been going on in Japan for 25 years now. They call it stagflation because they print so much money in Japan to try to cover it up, and because there's a bunch of things going on with Japan, but they should be having astronomical inflation because of how much money they print, and they're having stagflation where the value of the money stays the same because, you know, the population is collapsing and no one's buying anything. we're entering that same phase ourselves. It may not be deflation. It may not be that you see everything get really, really cheap, but it's going to continue to stay the same. You see it going on with oil right now. They can't get the price of oil to do what they want it to do. It's not deflation. I guess technically it would be. I don't know. I'm not an economist. But the problem is there's not enough people buying oil to drive the growth. So it's probably stagflation. Because the consumers are dying and they didn't produce more consumers, and the other economies aren't consumer economies, which you can debate whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, but they're just not. And so there's no need for all this growth in the oil demand that everyone based all their predictions off of all this time. So there we go. We're going to see some deflation, or at least stagflation in the coming months, maybe 2 to 3 years, 4 or 5 years. I don't know. I'm not an economist. It's impossible to predict timing on these things. And then we're going to get some really bad inflation. So what's that mean? Well, that means in the near term, people, you're going to have the ability to buy some property and get out of the city and get in the country at reasonable prices. It's never going to be free. It's never going to be free. But you've got to get out of debt. You've got to get some money socked away and saved up, because in the coming years, and like I said, I have no idea about timing, but I do know this: it's coming, and it's coming quickly. You know, it's definitely in the 5-year window. I would think it was in the 2-year window, maybe, or even 1-year window, that a lot of these properties, especially out here in the country, because we got, especially in the country and in the uneducated classes, we're starting to die really quick. The opioid crisis, alcoholism, drug addiction, obesity, it's killing us like crazy out here. And you're going to have the opportunity to come this way if you want. But you got to be out of debt, and you got to have some money saved. And if you do that, though, and start getting ready, you're going to have the opportunity. And it's not just going to be land and houses. I mean, it's going to be everything: cars, tools, implements. I've watched several agricultural operations in recent years shut down around here, and people who don't have the ability to purchase the farming implements have been able to get a hold of some impressive infrastructure, and for the most part it's just sitting there in their yards rotting. But we've had dairy farms shut down locally, not because they weren't economically viable. It's just because the people got old and they couldn't run them anymore. I got a cattle operation literally at the top of the hill, and on the other side of the hill, this gentleman's in his late 80s. It's a giant operation. He's always got a couple thousand head going through there. My understanding, I don't know him personally, my understanding is that he does not have any children. He might have a daughter or something, but he doesn't have any children who are looking to take this thing over. He's got thousands of acres right in this area. Within the last 6 months, we had, I bet there's 6 properties for sale within a half mile of where we're sitting right now. Several of them very large, a lot of work, but they're out there, and there's no, actually there's 2 large acre tracts. That's right, there's 2 large acre tracts. One of them is beautiful pasture, woods. It's over 100 acres. The other one has been cut over. It's about 70 acres. Both of them are, if I shot a gun off right now, you'd hear the report at those 2 properties. And they're just sitting there with nothing going on. Anyway, this went a little off track. I wanted to keep it way more economically focused and be less about come out of her, my people. But that's kind of what I'm saying. What's facing us? We're in uncharted territory. Here there be dragons. We don't really know where we are. But demographics is destiny, and our people are dying, and there's no one to take over their houses. There's no one to take over that. This is so. It's getting biblical as I talk about it. I'm going to stop before I get off on a religious rant. But there's no one to take over their houses. There's no one to take over their property, and it's all going to be sitting there for the taking, for someone else to come in and get. So start making your plans. You're going to have the ability to get out of the cities and get out here in the country and start establishing a community that can last, a remnant that can survive the coming troubles. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you.